In the mid to late 1990s, there was an incredible pop-punk band out of Southern California that played shows with bands like Blink-182, Good Charlotte, the Ataris, Limbeck, Newfound Glory, MXPX, Less Than Jake, and so many other well-established pop-punk and punk-adjacent bands, and they played Warped Tour with high-energy shows that got crowds gassed up. They put out one of the most anticipated and well-known drive-thru records releases in 2002, known as Kings of Pop, which took their 90s popularity to a whole new level. They put in a decade's worth of great music together, and then as the pop-punk bubble burst in the early 2000s, the band went their separate ways and remained on hiatus for 19 long years. That is until the band decided to get back together for a reunion show in June of 2024, opening for longtime friends The Starting Line. I've been a personal fan of this band since I picked up a copy of their CD for their second album, Act Your Age, at a Sam Ash store in Bismarck, North Dakota back in 1998. And after playing the holy hell out of this album, most of my friends in high school also became huge fans of this band as well. If you haven't figured out who I'm talking about by now, then you may have missed the boat on this absolutely epic Orange County band called Homegrown, and I actually have the privilege of talking with both John and Adam from the band on this episode of the Powered by Rock podcast. So hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Let's go back to the beginning because you guys built up this popularity and it's kind of like you were on this kind of rise, right? So you were one of like I said, SoCal's rising pop punk bands. You released That's Business in 1995, which had some of your still fan favorite songs like Surfer Girl, Get a Job, The Hearing Song, and Face in the Crowd, to name a few. And one thing I want to note about this album is that there is a definite hardcore tone in some of the songs, especially towards the end of the album. So first thing I want to ask is, were these songs built from your influences, like in a hardcore space? Or did you guys kind of play shows with hardcore bands at the time? Or were you just writing different styles that you liked?
I mean, we came out of high school. So originally Homegrown was a cover band. And I wasn't even in the band, neither was Adam. The guitar player quit, so I filled in. And then the bass player quit, and that's when Adam filled in, and we decided to start writing our own songs. And then, I don't know, it was crazy. It was really fast, like 94, and we literally got signed within a year and put out an album. So, I don't know. I think, how many songs did that album have, Adam? Like 15, 16?
Yeah, it's about right.
I think we were just young, and we didn't really have any structure. We had a lot of the same influences, but I think we just decided just to write an album and just do it.
Yeah. There's like some like early, I'm trying to think like all the early like metal, like Slayer and all like, so I remember you guys always jamming on that stuff and learning all the Metallica and Slayer riffs and jamming way back in the day. So there might have been a little bit there in some of those like harder songs, but I feel like we're just like, hey, here's this song, and then we like play John's song, like that's cool, and right, you know, and then I was barely starting to write songs or whatever back then, and I have a song, and then I don't even remember why I sang, or I don't even remember how that happened, but I was like, I think I can sing it or something, and then just started singing. I don't know if we really had any plans. We're just like, wow, someone wants to sign us. This is cool. And it just kept snowballing.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like, I don't know. That first year, we played a lot of dance clubs. I think that's how we got our popularity. Like, we somehow had a manager that was involved in the Orange County dance club, and we just kept playing, and all of a sudden we got on festivals, and our first big show was with Face to Face at the Ice House. I mean, that was like a real show. Yeah. And I think that was very frightening.
Yeah, what year would that be, like 94 then, probably, or 95, early 95?
Probably 95, probably early 95 for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because I just remember, like, obviously going back through the catalog, I remember hearing songs like Worthless and even some of the stuff on like Surfer Girl, and when you guys redid it for Act Your Age, it's like this heavier thing. It's like you're adding like this heavier element, and I was like, are they playing with like hardcore kids, or like are they just like throwing stuff in there? I mean, you had a lot of different stuff going on in some of those songs, which I thought was great because I hated listening to the same poppy, pop punk song that's like 2.5 minutes long, straight, like, verse, chorus, whatever. And then it just ends, right? You guys did all sorts of stuff. You had like record scratching. You had weird noises in there. You had heavy guitar riffs, lead guitar. Most bands in that pop punk range didn't even have lead guitars. So I was just kind of interested as to like, were you
I
guys
think
planning this stuff out together, or was it like, hey, I think we're in the studio, we got enough time, let's throw some stuff in here?
no, I think because we did all of our, we didn't write any songs in the studio. All of our songs were written inside of our old drummer's garage, and I think Adam and I's biggest influence at the time was probably NoFX. And NoFX, you know, if you listen to all their first album, earlier albums, it was just straight up heavy guitars with a lot of leads. And then like Bad Religion had a lot of good solos in their songs too. And
A lot of Screeching Weasel, remember way back, like early, and like
yeah,
a lot of Screeching Weasel,
Operation Ivy,
Operation Ivy, some of that early, like Pinhead Gunpowder, some of that. I mean, I haven't even thought of these bands in forever, but
Green Day. I mean, honestly,
yeah,
Green Day was a big influence on us too.
Slappy
Like when we
Hours
first
is
started out.
huge.
And
It
a
was all
lot
just
of like,
coming at us. We were just like learning. We're just figuring out like chords. Like I remember we listened to some band or and you'd be like with no effects, you'd be like, oh, you could do a chord that way. You could throw a major third on there or something, or you could do an octave over this minor and it sounds like, you know what I mean? Like at least I remember just hearing bands and going, oh, you can do that. And so you just keep going and adding, oh, you can do that. Oh, you can do that. And whether it was like heavy stuff or like pop punk, you just kept going, oh, you can do that. I mean, I don't know. We just kept adding.
And that's pretty typical. I mean, especially with a band that has no production people telling them what to do and what not to do, right? Like you just kind of just make your own music and see what sounds good to you first. And then if people like it, that's great, right?
yeah, I mean, yeah, honestly, it all just fell together. And next thing you know, after That Business came out, one of the A&R assistants actually at Outpost Records, like was a big fan, found our first album and literally shot this to the A&R guy. And we got signed in like 97. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Remember, John? We toured with the U.S. Bombs off of that Face of the Crowd on the compilation,
Oh yeah.
and we just went out on our first tour, and like that was a crazy tour. But
I think I was at 1996. We went on our first tour ever. I think I was like only 20. We weren't even old enough to go to the bars.
yeah.
When we got in the van, we didn't know what to do. We had a van, no trailer, and at that time, no cell phone, no internet. Wait, I think internet was around, right? I think so. That's how
Barely,
Bob.
No, we were answering fan mail. Remember in Huntington Beach, we'd be like answering the fan mail back, and remember someone mailed us like crap.
Yeah, so weird.
Yeah.
No,
I want to put
it
this
was a
kind
cool
of into
time.
like chronological kind of retrospective for people who are trying to think of like, well, what's going on around like 96, 97, right? So like, Dookie just came out in 94, I think it was 94, 95, somewhere in there. So like this is shortly after like pop punk is really starting to even blossom and become a mega thing, right? Like, Smash came out. I think it was, Offspring Smash came out that same year. Blink-182 had just released Cheshire Cat around like 1995, 96, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like Dude Ranch hadn't even been released yet in 97. So, they're talking about like before Blink got big, but like kind of in this lull, ska bands were kind of coming up in this time, and Rancid was kind of coming up in this time, like post Dookie, but before, Blink, right? So was there any point during the first couple of years that you guys started to have like grand visions of becoming successful rock stars, as mentioned in the song Facing the Crowd?
I don't know if we actually had a vision. We did. I mean, to me, back then, I just thought we were just going to keep going, like we did aspire. Blake was one of our really good friends at the time, and we saw how successful they were doing, like doing their shows and doing their thing. And I'm like, yeah, we want to be like that, like just do our thing and people like it, they like it. I don't think we actually had a formula like, all right, we're going to write songs for the radio, we're going to get signed. Like, I don't think we ever had that like in our head. Like, of course, oh yeah, it would be nice to be big, but I don't think we actually intentionally tried to be big.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I felt like things just kept coming our way, and we kept saying, yeah, that's a good idea. Or not a good idea. But most of the time it was just that sounds great, And
yeah.
Well, I think that's a good problem to have too, because if you had nobody asking you questions, you'd probably be like, well, maybe we shouldn't do this anymore, right?
Yeah.
But what Adam mentioned, that the Punk Songs compilation, like that definitely got us on the map for sure in Orange County. Like that, they had all these cool bands that were on there, and it just took off, and that song literally got it. That deal and then snowballed into a major label,
And now you guys are millionaires.
That's right.
Yep.
Billionaires.
After that last show, I'm like, I can retire now.
Yeah. Try to retire. Plus, people have to remember too, like Don was saying about the compilation. It sounds like, oh, a compilation, you know. But in retrospect, if you think at that time, it was pretty novel. Like, it was a new idea. I remember, like, oh, a punk compilation. You know, you might have seen like the TV ones, the best of hits or whatever, and they'd scroll.
Dolly Parton and Jimmy
Yes.
Rogers and stuff.
You can almost see like the names of them, and then they'd highlight one like in yellow, and it'd play the song. I mean, like in the punk world, to have a compilation, when that one came out, it was a big deal. People were like, whoa, like that's a great idea, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think Punkorama might have been the first one that I ever heard, and that was probably around that exact same time, like 95, 96, something like that. And then it was like, obviously Fat Records did it and a bunch of other bands or other labels did it, but it was fairly new. And for me, living in the Midwest at the time, it was impossible to find new music unless it was from those comp albums, because it was like, who's going to tell you about these other bands that you may have never heard of? Like, I actually heard of Rancid through Punkorama 1, I think. And I was like, that's crazy that you have to hear Rancid from a compilation album when they're like obviously one of the bigger bands in all of California at the time. But that's how I figured out who they were. I was like, that's insane. So,
yeah. Rancid, another big influence of ours for sure.
So let's fast forward a couple of years, and then you guys released Act Your Age, which to this day I still consider one of my absolute favorite albums of all time. And I know I've listened to that album well over 300 times in my life. So what kind of success and issues did you start to see once this album came out?
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, we saw the side of major label, and it's definitely, I mean, especially now I work at a corporate company where my last company, we got acquired like 3 times. So seeing that now and back then with the major label, same exact thing, you know, when label runs out of money, they get bought out, and then they downsize, and bands that didn't sell them like a couple 100,000 or gold or platinum, they drop. So,
I mean, we didn't even have a chance. If I think about the timing, it was like, by the time we signed and got the record done, they were already in the midst of being absorbed or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I remember them saying, like, Dave Crowley, right? He was, John, when is it like, well, we got this much tour support, but then it's gone because they're like, they're shelving you. It's kind of like, oh, I think we got like tour support maybe for kind of one tour or something like that. And then we just had to buckle up and make it work, you know?
Yeah, it was a weird time. Like, we were like buddies with the A&R guy, and he was the first one to go. And then, you know, we started dealing with the actual label owner, and that's when we started going to like negotiations and getting bought out. And so, yeah, that was a little blow to the ego for sure, you know, because we were pretty set. We had a bunch of tour. 98 was one of our biggest years where we toured nonstop, but so many bands. And also that year, our drummer ended up having brain cancer, so a brain tumor. So that was a tough time. It's like we went through a whole ring of different drummers, and it was definitely that was definitely one of our rockiest times for sure.
Yeah,
but leading up to that, it was great.
We worked hard though, like not to pat ourselves on the shoulder, but I remember us like having conversations like, well, we got to do what we got to do. Like, let's just go get on the road and tour and just like make it work, you know, because we love the record. It just kind of got his legs cut out from underneath it, you know. So we're watching everyone else who's getting the deals and things like that, you know, Unwritten Law, Blink, all them. We're like, oh, here we go, us too. And it's like, That's like what John's saying. It was like, man, we thought we were poised for this, and then it got shelved. The record basically they dropped support for it. So we just worked, you know.
I was gonna say, I remember thinking at the time, I was like, how is this not as big as like a Blink album right now? Because it was like, in my high school, it was like those 2 albums, Dude Ranch and you know, Act Your Age, were like equally like played within my friend group. Like it was like everybody loved both of those albums. It was like, how are these guys not like on the same like MTV and all this other stuff? It was crazy because I was like, you know, obviously I didn't know the ins and outs of what was going on with your guys' business side of it at the time, but it was like, this just doesn't make sense. Like, how could they not get the same support, knowing full well that they have very similar styles? They're making great music. The album sounds great. And then it's like, you know, just because one band gets it doesn't always mean that another band gets it as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's weird like that. So
just like our first album title, that's it.
Well, and one thing I want to mention about the from going from that business to Act Your Age is the production level and the engineering, recording, mixing, mastering was like a huge jump in improvement, right? So like when you guys put this album together, was like when you thought like, hey, you know, we got this thing ready to go. I don't know how long it was like before you guys put it out, between, you know, recording it and then, you know, putting it out. But did you guys have like buzz around you or within your guys' group of friends or anything like that, where you're like, we did this, here we go, like we're on the way, right?
No, honestly, we didn't. We literally. So the biggest difference between production, obviously, from our first album to our second album. Our first album was the first time we were in an actual professional studio. We had no idea. Remember driving up to West Beach, Adam, and we were just like, where are we? Where's the studio? Like,
oh, Sunset, right? Sunset.
Yeah, it's off the Sunset. Yeah, but it was called West Beach.
Yeah, West Beach.
It was crazy, man. It was our first time we were like 19. Never ever recorded in a professional studio before. Like we did demos at some really cheap studio, like for the Dad's Business stuff. Like we just literally recorded demos to gift out to shows, you know. Those are all recorded live. Dad's Business was like actually tracked in a real studio. And I think after that we actually went into pre-production for Act Your Age, which is crazy. We didn't know. We're like, oh, we're gonna actually practice in a real studio and record it and then go record again.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work. Yes, it was a
lot of work. Yeah, I do remember we were very, very well practiced before we went in. Like everything, fills, every single little part that we had to play, because drums were tracked first or whatever. We're kind of like playing, I think, or something like that, playing along to give like a feel, or playing guitar or something. Because it was all the tape too. Like today's kind of the home studio area. You can come in, leave a recording whenever you want. We were at Ocean Way at that point with, producer Cliff Durrell. Like this was real studio money, label money, label time. So there's no messing around.
It was like $2,000 a day at Ocean Way. That's crazy.
Yeah. Remember like Slayer's in the room next door recording. Like, I mean, it was just, it was like, we were like with the big boys, it was like, we have to, we had to be really good because it was all the tape. It was like, get it right in one take or start over, Yeah,
you don't see those guys out there cutting the tape and splicing it together, right? Like, no.
Yeah, most of the studios are gone now. Like even Sound City. It's like we did half of Act Your Age at Sound City, and that studio is, I think, a parking lot now, or maybe an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Huh.
Crazy.
Well, that goes to show you what music industry is like these days, right? It's like we make more money by putting this into a parking lot. Now I got a question for you guys. There's going to be songs that you've released that maybe you're like, I don't know if I should have released that song. I do remember, obviously, when like She's Anti started to get some backlash because Columbine came out, like the shooting happened around that same time. So people were kind of having some issue with that. Obviously, it wasn't meant in any way, shape, or form to be offensive for that kind of reason. But, there's songs in there about masturbation, calling girls the B word, bitch, all this stuff, like all this other stuff. It was popular at the time, right? I wrote songs like that myself, but I was wondering, I never got kind of even close to famous. So like that shit is all in the shadows. Like people have to dig that up, but they can go look at these songs from you guys. Do you ever like look back and go, oh man, that song, that didn't really work out. 30 years later, we're not listening to that song anymore. Or don't like that song. But do you guys ever regret ever releasing any of those songs?
See, I have a struggle with the word regret.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wouldn't write anything of that now because I'm 48 years old, turning 49 this year, you know what I mean? And I'm also like, I have a pretty good job and also my kids, you know what I mean? But it was a time, you know what I mean? Like we were young. We didn't know. We literally did not know anything. We were literally 4 boys growing up out of Orange County that loved playing music and just wanted to play music.
We're goofing off. Honestly, it was. And I know it's probably hard in today's day and age. Maybe people older like us can understand. it just wasn't on the radar to necessarily even be like, wow, that's really offensive. Now, I obviously the timing, like she's anti that was like fun too. Like, and that the tragedy happened like right after the release. Like the timing was just terrible. Like who could have known? But it wasn't. You know what I mean? It was just all kind of fun. Like it just like kind of goofy. Kind of like, you watch the Blink shows nowadays. Like I've watched a few on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, they're still doing it. I'm like,
They're still doing it.
Like,
I was like, wow,
like
Tom, wow,
I was
Tom.
like, oh my gosh, they're right there.
Yep.
But it was just like that, it wasn't scrutinized, I guess, the same way. But I'm the same boat as John. We're older. It's not like I'd be, writing about some things that I did and saying things that I did. It's like, you change. You just change.
And the only reason I bring that up, obviously, is because I don't give two shits about cancel culture. Like, if somebody does something wrong, absolutely, like, let them know, like, blow them up or whatever. But I think when somebody just says something and, like, people are so offended by it that, like, they have to, like, try to get somebody canceled, it's like, that is absolutely absurd. Like, there's context, there's jokes, there's timing. Like, I'm just saying, people reverse engineer cancel culture to make it seem like every white guy who ever existed, or anybody who's ever a male who ever had any sort of opinion, should be canceled. And I'm like, that's not really how it works. I was just kind of balancing that out with, like, obviously you've seen stuff like that happen in your lifetime with your band, and I was just wondering if, like, you ever were like, man, you know what? Maybe we would have thought about that one a second time had we thought about the future. But again, 1920, you don't think about that stuff, right?
Well, obviously, and also at 1920 or 21, when I wrote Chudenta, like, I don't think we've ever had a school shooting. We didn't think. Like, we came out of Orange County, we live in the most sheltered bubble possible, thinking everything's always happy. And, I mean, dude, look at this. Look at these palm trees, man.
Disneyland's right down the street. All this other stuff's cool.
Yeah, and would not ever think someone actually would. I mean, still to this day, I'm still blown away about what's going on in this world, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, and
it's pretty sad.
I mean, just to put it in more context, you guys did have songs about, jocks bullying, musicians, art creative people in your songs before that. So it wasn't like you just dropped this bombshell of like, hey, we're getting bullied, here's what we're going to do about it. That was actually a song kind of in that realm, right? So it was like, here's a song from a female's perspective about doing the exact same thing we've talked about in other songs. So,
I mean, they made movies about it, I mean, back in the 70s.
So let's move on to the next level. You guys are doing festivals, and Kings of Pop comes out. So after 4 long years of waiting for a third full-length album, fans finally got smacked in the mouth with Kings of Pop. And I remember being on Homegrown forum boards during this time, wondering what the music would sound like. And it felt like an eternity for that third album to come out. But when it did, you guys actually did reach a reasonably high level of kind of notoriety with its release. So, I guess when we're looking at Kings of Pop, in my opinion, every song was just excellent. Like, the production value, everything was just like what you would expect from a really, really high level album at the time. It was a good mix of pop punk and emo as well. Because, after the turn of the century, things wasn't just pop punk anymore. Blink's doing like Adam's Song and other stuff like that was starting to meld in there. And then you guys started obviously doing some support and touring more for that. What do you guys remember about this time of your careers most, and what changed for you when Kings of Pop came out?
Well, the toughest time was when we were labelless. So, leading up to Kings of Pop, we did have a period where we were shopping for, I think, almost 2 years. Like, literally making demos inside a flower shop off of Melrose, like in some terrible studio that smelled like BO. Remember that studio, Adam?
Now that you say it, I remember.
It was terrible.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I
we
remember that.
Clearly inside of a flower shop at someone's studio that was recording us for free, and it smelled so bad, and the demos sounded terrible. But yeah, we were literally trying to find it. We didn't have a drummer, and we finally found Darren. And I remember one day, because we were friends with Richard and Stephanie from Drive Thru, from all the bands that we were friends with, and I literally called them up and said, "Hey, you guys want to sign us?" And they're like, "Absolutely." And then got that ball rolling, and I just started working
Well, yeah, I mean, like John said, it was a little deflating leading up to it, but we're still touring, and I remember, you make the rounds around, the United States. There's certain routes you do and things like that, and once you've kind of gone a few times and a few times again, you can feel that sense of fatigue. It's a little bit of fatigue from the audience too. They've heard, what I mean, you want to give something new.
Yeah.
I can't remember when the EPs came out between then or whatever. But yeah, Kings of Pop was like a breath of fresh air. And we had all that time like to be writing and working on things and, coming up with songs, and it just felt good. It just felt good to have someone behind us. And they, I mean, to their credit, they're always very enthusiastic about the bands they signed. They made a good point to be a fan.
Yeah.
And that felt good too. I remember at the time, like, oh, they're singing the demos. They're excited about this, and I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and from my perspective as a fan, I remember Drive Through Records basically snatching up pretty much every good band that wasn't on a major label at the time or on Fat Records, right? And I was like, holy hell, they're doing big things over there. And then all of a sudden, it starts to kind of unravel later on. But when I saw it was Drive Through, I was like, holy shit, like this is great, because all the other bands that pretty much I liked at the time were signing through Drive Through. So what was that kind of relationship like with Drive Through Records during that time? Were you guys constantly talking? Was it just a sign and release kind of thing, or what kind of things happened because of that signing?
We got on a bunch of tours because of them. We I think the first tour we did, they set us up with Alistair in Japan. So we just signed with them. They're like, hey, we're going to pay for you guys to go to Japan with Alistair. We're like, absolutely. And honestly, I've never heard of Alistair before. At that time, I didn't know one single drive-through band. Like, the only band I knew was Phoenix TX. That's it. And after that, I think they threw us on the Warped Tour. We were on main stage on the Warped Tour after that. And then we did, like, the Drive-Through Invasion Tour, like, all over the U.S. in 2003. That was insane. And then we did, like, a Drive-Through Invasion, like, in the U.K. twice. It was awesome.
They had a culture of pick up the band below you type thing. So if a band had a release, it was pretty much expected, not in a heavy-handed way, but almost like this is how we do things at Drive Through. It's like, Steel Train comes out with some whatever. It's like, who's taking them? So everyone who kind of came up behind the different bands that were rising would always sort of pop in on the tour, so they would get a shot to sort of come up and see what worked and what didn't. So
what's crazy is that's how it still should be, but it's not.
Yeah.
Oh no! Now it's like, okay, how much money can your label give us?
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna pay for our marketing? What? Yeah, it's crazy.
I even had an episode about the death of rock and roll, right? So like the death of rock and roll had many contributing factors, but one of the big, and it's not like rock music's dead. It's just kind of like one of those subjects everyone wants to talk about. But one of the contributing factors that I always say is like these big bands never really want to bring up new bands. They're like, sure, we'll put them on, a road, like a tour or whatever, but it's not like they're really going to give them any spotlight. Most of the time back then, it was like, we'll co-headline with you, or we'll do, a full U.S. tour. It wasn't just like, hey, you're going to 3 shows or 4 shows here and there, like a regional show around you, or playing one show for us in your hometown. It was like you'd go on a full U.S. tour, or, Southwest tour or whatever it was, Pacific Northwest. It'd be like, 10 to 12 spots. So it was like a full tour.
Yeah.
And that's how, again, you heard of more bands that you never heard of, right? I was like, I don't know how it's possible there's so many good bands in the world, but at the time it just seemed like there was an endless amount of good bands. I'm glad.
So it's a lot different. I mean, honestly though, when you said death of rock and roll, it's true. So I have a really good friend. She's like the director of like artist development at Warner Brothers, and she's been telling me in the last few years, she's like, no, rock is dead. Like, there's no market for rock anymore. But literally, hip hop, country, it's plus crazy. I mean, even with the resurgence of Blink-182, who's absolutely killing it right now. They're killing it. Like, they're making, that's the only exception. I can't really think of any other new rock band coming out right now.
If you weren't a platinum selling artist before the year 2001, you probably aren't a platinum selling artist in rock genre right now. It's pretty much like that. It's so very rare that, somebody tops the charts these days in rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other one I can think of is, and I'm sure there's others, but like Turnstile, I feel like
Yeah.
got good alternative rock radio sort of play, and
Yeah. And they
and a
probably got gold, like they probably got like gold, but I don't think they ever went platinum. But yeah,
little
they
bit of
definitely
mainstream,
blew.
yeah,
Yeah, they
but
definitely
doing
blew
very
up.
well, So
Yeah, for sure.
Like we have a friend that's touring with him right now, and I see his videos, and they're just playing like these
oh,
giant
it's crazy,
arenas.
yeah,
Yeah,
And they're like, wow.
their shows
yeah,
are like being in like a jazzercise video, but to like kind of like heavy, hardcore kind of music, kind of
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
with like some of this light music in between to like mix things up. It's like it's pretty insane. People go nuts. Speaking of the death of rock and roll, let's talk about the breakup of the band. Adam leaves Homegrown, right? So obviously the band had some lineup changes over the years. And I remember being bummed out when Bob got, brain tumor. He had to leave the band. Thankfully, he's recovered. And I think he actually even played in another band since then. There were a couple of guitarists that left the bands over the years, but the core was always you two guys, right? Like, I mean, obviously not from the very beginning of Homegrown, but like once you guys started recording and putting out records, like it was always you two guys. So let's get all the way real now. I'm sure you guys have talked about this plenty of times between yourselves, but it's probably not widely known as to like what exactly happened. I've talked to you about it, Adam, a little bit here and there, but you guys are probably as close as any non-related brothers any two humans could possibly be at this point. What were some of the catalysts for you doing that, and what basically ended up making the band break up in the end?
I mean, you want me to start, Don? I, to say I left for another band wouldn't be to say it right. I mean, in all honesty, New Year's Day was an ask for me to write, and me figuring I don't have any employment skills and I'm trying to make money for, being newly married and trying to pay rent and all these different things and doing drywall. It felt like a good opportunity and the right time to like try and make some money off of publishing and stuff like that and get them like a start. As I said, I'd help them a little bit, and then I was going to leave. Long story short, I think I just hit a real low spot in life, and I used to be involved in my faith and stuff like that, Christian faith when I was like younger, and then just kind of sort of gave it up or whatever. I hit a low spot like in a relationship and in life, and then I don't know, just after that kind of spot, I just felt like a call back, like I gotta like change my life. I got to do something and make a change. It was hard, man. It was a really tough time because, and we talked about this a little bit or whatever, and I said some things in interviews. If maybe you've seen John, I don't know, but it was very hard because that decision of me leaving has such an impact on everybody. Yeah. I mean, this is like this is our identity, this is what we're doing, this is how we're making money, this is our next steps. And so, I mean, it has nothing to do with any of the members or like anything that they would have done, said, wrong, anything like that. It's just a decision I felt like was right for me, at the time, and I needed to take. And unfortunately, because band is like family, that it hurts family, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, nothing but love. Like, I mean, here we are today or whatever, and that's kind of my side, but it was hard, and it was hard to bring them into that too, because ultimately all our decisions, each one of ours is going to affect the other.
I think at that time, Adam was right. Like we were in preparations for a new album, so I was actually very excited for that part. Cause we did have a European tour with Newfound and Hot Water Music lined up, and I was super excited about that. But leading up to that, we did have, I think, from touring for so long, and it's, like I met Adam through a mutual friend, and we were going to Christian hardcore shows, so I knew where Adam's far has always been, with the church and being a good boy and all that stuff. And I mean, and like honestly, the road does a lot of crazy stuff to you, man. Like it got me into like I started partying a lot on the road, doing a lot of bad shit, and I think that definitely set a disconnection with all the members because we were all kind of spinning out of control a little bit, on the road.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but then when Adam told us about it, I was like, I was sad, of course, disappointed, of course, but I understood. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But right when he told me, I was like, all right, I can't do the band without Adam. So I decided to get a job. I didn't want to be that band where like, okay, guys, I'm taking over. I'm gonna sing all of Adam's songs. No, we're not gonna do that. We had a bunch of shows still lined up for the rest of the year. I'm like, all right, we'll just finish it off, and then our last show will be on my
So it
birthday.
wasn't like a Pink Floyd thing where David Gilmour and Roger Waters were fighting over who keeps the name. It's like a divorce, split up, like who makes the songs, all that stuff.
No, Adam straight up said, "Hey guys, I'm just gonna leave. You guys need to keep the name, keep all my equipment. It's fine." We're like, "Oh wow, are you sure?" We just kept playing for a little bit, and we did have like I said, we had like another like 6 shows lined up, and then called it quits.
Looking back on it now, was there anything that you felt like you might have missed out on because, like, either from both of you guys, that you guys, if you would have, decided to keep the band together, obviously we'll talk about the reunion and stuff, but do you ever look back on it and go, you know what, maybe we could have found a different way to do this, but still kept going? Is there ever that thought in you guys' mind at all?
I could say, without disclosing names, we were going to do the Newfound tour, like as the last kind of thing. I thought I remember saying, well, this is a big deal, so I'll whatever. And then we were going to keep it like private that, that I'm leaving or whatever. And then somebody had said something to somebody who knew drive-through when they shouldn't have. And that got out. And then they asked questions later, are you guys done? Whatever. And they're like, oh, then let's pull it and we'll get someone else on who's not done. I didn't have control of the person that, said some things they shouldn't have. And that was, I would say that's disappointing. It'd have been much nicer to go out on a high like that. But I was like, it's like, once it happened, it's like, well, what can you do? It's like, it just sucked.
I mean, of course, you can't turn back time and change things. Otherwise, things would probably be a lot different now if that happened. I mean, I probably wouldn't be here. Yeah, I probably wouldn't be here.
Money was pouring into musicians, right? Like it still is, but it just in a different way now. But it's like,
oh man, we were so rich. We were getting paid $1,000 a month, Adam.
Dude, we're spending like, we come home with money. Like I feel like I'd spend like $3 or $4 grand on nothing in like 2 weeks and be like, well, back on the road. Like it was the dumbest thing. I could have saved enough money to put a down payment on a house. There's so many things I could have done, but I was just like, woo! I was like living like an eternal kid,
Our first paycheck from what was it? What's our second album? Actor Age, when we first got our advance. I think we each got like 50 grand after like our recording stuff. And I told my mom, this is like I was 22 at the time. Mom, I just got paid. She's like, okay, you want to go invest and buy a house? Like, these houses are only $100,000. You just put down a down payment on 2. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go buy a car. So I walked into Toyota and paid $38,000 cash for a 4Runner.
And I went in and I got a Mitsubishi Montero. So stupid.
Yeah.
You're so stupid. But no,
you're in good
I wouldn't
company
change a thing.
Yeah. For the record, his truck was better than mine.
Yeah.
I remember I got mine and then I saw John's and I'm like, dang it.
Yeah. 4Runners are a lot better than Monteros for sure. Mitsubishi, whatever. But I will say you guys are in good company. I think it was Ben Affleck who said he got paid something like 150 grand or 80 grand, but then for Goodwill Hunting. And then like after all the taxes and stuff, he ended up with like $50,000 and he went and bought a Jeep Wrangler and then that was all of his money gone.
Wow.
So he was like literally broke, but he was like a movie star still. It was like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's Ben Affleck. Yeah.
He's Ben Affleck. I think he's doing fine.
So let's talk about something that's more happy, right? Like you guys got back together. You guys obviously did a reunion show last month. So what were some of the conversations that took place to finally get you guys back in a room together to play Homegrown songs? Was it just Adam being like, come on, let's go play it. Come on.
No, I think the person that was trying to spark it up was Darren. Like he's been kind of messaging us, sending group texts for the past couple of years, but dude, I'm like so deep in my life, you know, my family life. I'm like, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And then honestly, I think we got approached with like a couple tours, like something corporate wanted to go on tour with us. And I just said, you know what? Let's meet, guys. And
Yep.
then we did. And then
Yep.
that was it. We literally met up at PF Chang's of all places.
Yep. The Irvine Spectrum.
At the Red Spectrum. And yeah, we just hung out, and I think we were there for like 3 hours and decided, try to get on the same page. I did tell everyone, I'm like, I want to make sure I don't want anyone to get like strong armed to do anything they don't want to do, you know, like I want to do this right. We're all in this together. Like we're all adults. Like what is all of our visions for the band? So still trying to figure that out. Like we just played one show, you know, Adam's got 3 kids. I have 1. Darren has 1.5, 2.
You too, right?
It's
Yeah,
hard to
yeah,
have
too.
a half of a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
Dan has nothing but his golf clubs.
Yeah.
But it's good, man. Like that last show was amazing.
I was gonna say, like,
Yeah.
after 19 long years of not playing together, like, can you articulate what it was like to play that reunion show?
It was, man, I still get happy about it. I've been watching YouTube videos get uploaded, and I felt like all of us were right in the moment. And the cool thing the crowd was all in. I mean, it was just like everything, and we'd worked hard. We'd had like 4 or 5 practices, like to really get it, like to dial it in, like dial in our parts, like shake off the rust, figure out like our, you know, get our vocal chops up and all that type of stuff, like working the set list, thinking through transitions, like John said, like kind of like whatever, like, hey, let's do this right type thing or whatever. And like, you know, and it just, I felt like everything came together exactly how it should have been.
Except for my back.
Except for his back. He was having some back troubles, but you still did it.
I did, but I literally threw my back out like a week before, and I had a back brace on stage, and it was terrible. Meanwhile, Adam's doing backflips on stage.
So act your age.
I'm getting super winded.
Now,
I'm off. Yeah. I realized
I was actually impressed.
Yeah, but you know what? I was like, second song in, I was like, whew, it's getting hard to sing. All right, all right. And in my head, I'm strategizing that night. I'm all, okay, when John's songs plays, take a break. Don't jump around as much. Kind of bob around, move the stage left and right. Stay moving, but relax. Because I realized I'm like, oh, I'm losing range because I'm like this, you know? So, you know, we're not young guns anymore. So
yeah. It is interesting because, you know, you still see, you know, 60-year-old punk rockers out there, you know, trying to put on a good show, and you're like, I can't even hear them. They like can't sing, they can't do anything because like they're trying to do too much. So what you just said is actually a pretty good, you know, pro tip for somebody. You know, I'm 42, like I want to start playing again, and I'm like, you know, I also want to like perform. I don't want to just stand there in one place and sing. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, like your actual breath isn't it's not as quickly to recover as it was when you were 22 years old.
Well, John told me, and I actually did it because I run in the foothills here in my city like a few days a week or whatever, and he was saying like, because John's very like physically fit and active or whatever, and he was saying like he was running and singing, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And so like for the last like 3 weeks or something like that, I'm out there running in the hills. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow. You know, I'm just out there, like literally, because no one's out there. I didn't care, you know.
No, yeah, I do it all the time. I do it around people.
Yeah.
I was just trying to build up stamina for it, you know. I still got a ways to go, but we're, you know, getting there.
Well, let's talk about where you guys go from here. So obviously you got another show lined up. I think it's on like September 10th. No, 20 something. What is it?
September 20th.
20th. Yeah.
The Glass House.
Yeah,
How are ticket sales, John?
We're at 90% sold out.
Nice.
I mean, yeah.
So
It's pretty good. Pretty
We
good
don't
for
even have
not.
any openers yet.
yeah, I know. I was
I
going to
know.
say,
We
have you
haven't
even
we
announced
have,
the opener? Because all I've seen is Homegrown at Glass House, which is crazy, and it's already 90%
yeah,
sold out.
honestly,
That's
we're
awesome.
still working that out right now. Still have some ideas for that, but honestly,
Yeah.
at this point, it doesn't really matter. Like we can have Adam's kids learn some songs, and then they can come up on stage and play.
I'll go out there with a banjo, and I've never played banjo before, and I'll just be like, "Hey guys," and then I'll get hit with all the tomato cans, so that way you guys don't get hit with any at the.
Yeah, but you know what? If someone's gonna hear this interview, and now we're gonna get like even more DMs, John, about because I'm getting so many. Are you getting a ton? I'm getting. I mean,
Yeah, I
and
get
it's
a bunch.
cool. I would do the same thing. I would be reaching out, like, not throwing any, shade at anyone for asking. Like, kudos to them. Like, I would ask, and I would keep asking too until I got an answer. But there has been a
Yeah.
lot of people asking to play.
Should get
But
Slayer to
we're
open
still
for
trying
you.
to figure it out. Like we're all still trying to we're figuring out like different like roles, like how we do this. Like John's opening DBAs. How we're setting up merch stores, marketing, online website, like all the things we're having to all sort of find our spot because we're all busy. We're all living busy lives, and like,
Yeah.
how do we communicate? How do we take something and support someone else? And like, we're still figuring things out.
I don't know if I heard this or if you guys mentioned it or somehow, but is there new music being written?
I mean, there's always something in the vault, Post Homegrown, I mean, I didn't stop writing. Like I did my solo thing for a little bit, and
Yeah.
then I got a lot of kid songs I could put out for sure. In like late 2004, we were in the studio for a little bit, like recording demos. Like we do have do have 6 right now that we have, but I don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. We're still enjoying the last show. You know what I mean? And then I don't. Are we gonna start practicing for the next show, Adam, or are we gonna wait till September?
We already practiced too much, so I think
He
we're
just
fine.
said you're busy, right? So,
Yeah.
I do like to
Practice
throw
is
out
pretty
where
fun. Well, we got to get deep too. That the thing is like I think we played a lot of songs we thought people would want to hear, but now we're gonna have a lot longer set, so we're gonna be getting into some deep cuts,
yeah.
which I think will be really fun. It's gonna be fun to go back into stuff, go back into EPs for the Glass House. Like we got to do it right,
I thought it was funny how you were saying that you guys worked really hard to like get ready for this, and you're like, we practiced 4 times. I was like, 4 times, Adam.
Those are 5 hard. I think we did 5 practices, but
We did 5.
We did 5 in 3 months. All right.
Yeah.
Those are 5 hard practices.
No,
That first one.
we were making fun of ourselves because we never practiced back in the day.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
we
that's
would
how it
make
was,
fun
though.
of ourselves if we practiced too much.
I mean, but when you make the songs, you just know them, right? So like, you don't have to practice them as much as like, for example, like if you're trying to play like a really hard cover song, you got to learn like an intricate lead part. You got to practice the shit out of that. But when you play it yourself, it's like second nature. You kind of know it, right? So like you play it so many times, you don't really need to memorize it. I still remember songs that I wrote when I was like 16 years old. I'm like, I don't know why I know it, but it's just like one of those songs that like it fits into what I can figure out. So it's just always in my memory bank.
Like I haven't played Homegrown songs in quite a long time until we started talking about reuniting, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, I need to get serious, and I actually pulled all my electrics out of my garage and started playing. And I remember Hiromi was like, my wife was like, wow, you can play all those songs? I'm like, yeah, I played it for like 11 years. But yeah, it was pretty fast to pick up and learn. But yeah, our first practice, it was a little rusty.
A little
but,
rusty, a little rusty,
but
fun.
It was fun. It was great. And then by the time we got to our second, third practice, I was like, all right, we're good.
Yeah.
My big ask with the band when we first got together, I'm like, all right, my big ask is I want us to sound the best we've ever been for these people. Like they've been waiting for 19 years. Like I don't want to come out there and just sound like trash. You know what I mean? Like people have been waiting. I don't want to disappoint. So
You want to sound like Johnny Trash, but not trash.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what? I think honestly that show, John, I think that was probably the best we've ever sounded. I mean, we've had some we've definitely had some highlights for sure. I mean, maybe it's good. I don't know. We played too many shows to count, but that was definitely like top of our game. And I think what was really cool is we were goofing off so much in practice. You know, like we were taking everything seriously, obviously, but like I wasn't sure how the banter would go because like John and I we'd always banter, and it'd be just in the moment. You know, we never knew what we were gonna say. Just things would come out and we'd laugh and just keep joking. And you don't know, and we haven't been up on the stage in 19 years. And then it sure as rain, we get up there and we're just like and we just start talking and riffing off each other. I'm like, yep, this is us. This is us.
Yeah, we definitely picked up where we left. You know.
And you got to make sure to use these chords right here.
Yep.
These.
Yep.
These are his chords, John, that he gave me, and I was supposed to promo, and I totally sucked at it and didn't. And then I was like recording in some live video, and he's all, I didn't say anything about the chords. He's all, oh, those are nice chords. I'm like, sorry, bro.
I just actually,
but the chords
because I only notice them if it like is like prominently. It was like, I think it was like in front of something. It was like in front of like a switch, like a pedal board or something. I was like, oh, those are my cables.
Yeah, that's
so you make your own cables?
Yeah, Powered by Rock has like guitar accessories and some other stuff that we sell. So yeah,
it works great. I've been using it for recording ever since you gave it to me. It's been great.
Well, you guys, I'm sure you have a long list of bands that would love to play with you. I mean, you guys seem like the kind of guys that don't like to burn bridges. I've known Adam for a couple years now, and he might forget to text back every once in a while, but he's never going to be like, hey, stop texting me, asshole.
Don't worry. I dealt with him for 16 years. I know.
Yeah, he was like, hey, bro, I just AOL mailed you. You didn't AOL mail me back.
That's funny. Well, that's all I got for you guys. I appreciate you guys being here. And did you have anything you wanted to say before we go today, or anything that you wanted to release out to the world that I didn't ask you about?
Yeah, go buy our merchandise at homegrownsucks.com. That's for Darren.
Yeah. Homegrownsucks.com.
Yeah, you could probably put that in the front of the interview too.
Another paid ad.
Yeah, because I mean, if you go to homegrownsucks.com, there's some great like limited merch, and then we're also doing signature series merch too, where each of us are going to have our own like merchandise piece that we'll make that's like a limited run too, which is kind of fun. That was Darren's idea.
What? Okay. Wait, I wasn't aware of this one.
Get to work, John.
But no, I mean, honestly, like, yeah, just keep checking our Instagram. Like, we do have updates coming up. Like, we just haven't really thought it all the way through yet. But yeah, we are toying with possible like vinyl releases and live recordings and stuff. So
yeah,
we have all the access to it. We just haven't really, come up with a game plan for it yet. So.
Yeah, very cool. I'm excited to see what comes up. I'm obviously, like I said, I've been a fan since before I ever even had relations with a woman. So that's how long I've been a fan of you guys' music. That's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you learned anything or liked what you heard on the show today, please show us some support and subscribe to this channel, and like, comment, and share this video with a friend, or put it up on social media. I hate to keep asking, but without those small actions, the YouTube bots pretty much ignore this channel. Putting these videos out is a lot of work, and if you want to show your appreciation, please consider purchasing some of our musical accessories or merch from our store at poweredbyrock.com. You can read our blog and follow us in the links below as well. Those are the plugs, and that's all I have. I'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.
Supposed to be